Hello everybody, this time we're going to be doing something a little different. I was tagged for the video game tag by Kevin from FTX-Band, whose channel will be linked below in the description. So instead of my normal Let's Plays, maybe you'll get to know me a little better, maybe I'll get to know some of you a little better, and it'll be great. I will also be tagging 3 people at the end of this video, so hopefully those individuals will do it, but let's go ahead and get started with the questions. Question 1. What is your all-time favorite video game? Hands down, no debate, Final Fantasy VI. I am a huge RPG nerd. Even though Chrono Trigger does come in a close second, I loved everything that there was about Final Fantasy VI. I can't think of a single bad thing that I could say. The villain was great. I like the fact that even though most people say Terra was the main protagonist, I say she was the main protagonist because I kind of felt that every character was really had their own motivations, had a lot of their own drives, and kind of took center stage at some point in the game where the feeling of them being the protagonist was their thing, and I thought that's awesome. I like the fact that I was halfway through the game and was like, wow, this is a really short game. We're gonna beat the last boss, and we fail at life because I love my existential crises. And it kind of opened into an entire new world. Everything about it just, mwah, it was wonderful. Question 2. What is your current favorite video game? Though I officially just burnt myself out on it just because I played it so much, I would have to say Fallout 4. I very much understand why a lot of people didn't like the game, but for me, the story elements I really liked. I'm not a huge first-person shooter guy, but all the aspects of a first-person shooter that were in the game I really liked. I like crafting. I like progression with character and items. I actually even enjoyed doing the settlement building, which a lot of people felt was fluff. So, again, I totally understand why a lot of people were disappointed, but I was very pleased and surprised with it. So, yeah, that's kind of my feeling on Fallout 4. Question 3. What is your favorite video game genre? It's a toss-up. I will have to say RPGs, probably more specifically JRPGs, because I am kind of a big old weeb. But point and clicks also hold a special place in my heart. I'm a huge tabletop nerd for RPGs. Yeah, I'm the Dungeons and Dragons, I got a critical hit on a 20. But I like different tabletop RPGs in general. But the point and clicks is kind of what's really got me into video games in the first place. Back when I was a wee lad, the Sierra games, King's Quest, Space Quest, Quest for Glory, or Hero's Quest, depending on your era, all those games to this day I still deeply, deeply love. I'm a very story-driven guy. I like character depth, and in general, if a game lacks in story, I lose something with the game. Obviously, gameplay is super important, don't get me wrong, but I need both. I need my cake, and I need to eat it too, because if I had cake and I couldn't eat it, then what's the point of having cake? And if I didn't have the cake, how could I eat it? And metaphors, that's what we have, and that's what we do. Question 4. How long have you been playing video games? I would say over 27 years. I am old enough not to date myself that I remember when the Nintendo came out. No, not the Super Nintendo, not a Game Boy, not any of that, but the actual original Nintendo, and I remember getting it. And I was just a wee lad. I couldn't even tell you my age. I must have been 7, maybe even 6. I just... too long ago for me to remember. But that really started getting me into video games, but it wasn't until maybe 20 years ago in the early to mid-90s when my family, with the original King's Quest 1 from the developer Sierra, we all tried to figure out how to beat that game together, and we did. But it was years later that my father actually bought me King's Quest 6, and that game was mind-blowing to me at the time. That is what got me into PC games in general. That's what got me back into video games, and I found a new love for them. So I will say realistically, 20 years. Yeah, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, King's Quest 6. Question 5. What is the first game you ever played? Technically, every Friday my family would go and have pizza, and there was a Pac-Man in the corner that you put in a quarter and you got to play Pac-Man. That was the first video game I technically ever played. Pac-Man was already kind of old at that time, but I liked doing it. It was kind of my thing. But as far as an actual like console or like at home quote unquote video game, that was the original Super Mario Brothers. No, I'm not kidding. I never really am I don't dislike platformers, but I'm not a huge platformer guy. But that was the game that kind of made me go, oh, you can jump and you can run and you can grow big. You can spit fireballs and Goombas and Koopa Troopas and things and stuff and princesses in another castle and Toad. And I just kind of fell in love with the idea of Super Mario Brothers, which kind of, again, made me fall in love with the idea of video games and enjoying them. Question 6. What game have you clocked in the most hours into? Probably Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy II, Chrono Trigger. I don't know. Oh, yeah, the original Final Fantasy. I spent an insane amount of hours playing and replaying that game. But I don't know how many hours that was. As far as my Steam account says, Witcher 3, which I most definitely believe. I think in the first 5 days, including sleeping and working and doing all that stuff, I already started clocking into like the 60s and 70s and 80s in hours. I did not sleep much when Witcher 3 first came out. So officially on record, I will say Witcher 3. Question 7. What's your longest gaming session? Well, when I was young and full of energy versus now, I have done 18-hour marathons on more than one occasion. Now, if we are allowed to include like not like gaming for like a half an hour at most, there's times where like, you know, come eat with the family, you have to eat. I would run down, scarf my food down, run to the bathroom, and then run back. If those count, where, you know, you can't have more than a 30-minute break, with that small little caveat, I would say that I have clocked in probably well into 24, 26 hours. There's been a couple of times where I just cracked open that new cartridge, a video game or CD, depending on what it was, putting it into my PlayStation, Super Nintendo, PC, what have you, and not sleeping to the point I was starting to get a little delusional. At one point, I was playing Chrono Trigger, and I remember falling asleep with the controller in my hands. So I will say my official answer is 25 hours. That sounds about right. Question 8. Who is your favorite game developer? I have issues with this one because I want to say Square Enix. They're the ones who created Final Fantasy. They're the ones who make, you know, the Final Fantasy games. Still to this day, even though I've been slowly more and more sad as time gone by, I haven't liked the Final Fantasy games as much. But I want to hold true, but after Final Fantasy 13, let's say 13 too. 13 I didn't think was terrible. I thought it was just lackluster. But, which... Real quick side note, there are two types of people in this world. There are Final Fantasy fans and there are Legend of Zelda fans. Now, Legend of Zelda fans can like Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy likes Legend of Zelda, but you know that there's a classic debate between them because there's someone who has played every game off one genre, who knows all the lore, but realistically, you know all the lore, the ins and outs, and all like the random knowledge of one or the other. You can't be both. Please feel free to argue or agree with this in comments below. But as far as favorite game developer is concerned, because that's what the actual question is, Sierra has always been true to me. Right when they started falling off the face of the planet in, I guess, late 90s, early 2000s, I can't remember the date, they definitely had a little blip there, but now they're back with the new King's Quest, which is on my channel, and you should totally check it out, because that game is awesome. But those games have consistently made me happy till the end of days. So I want to say Square Enix. I want to love you, Square Enix, but you've just hurt me too much. So I will say Sierra because they have never disappointed me. Question 9. Who is your favorite hero character from a game? There's so much pressure to these because I I can't name one person. I definitely like Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. I really liked that character a lot, even though he was probably my least favorite character. Well, not my least favorite character. He was not my top tier characters for Final Fantasy VII. Most JRPGs or RPGs in general, I don't generally feel that the main character is supposed to be abstract, so you can connect with them a little easier, I guess. I just totally pulled that out of my ass. I don't know why. Geralt from Witcher 3 has been one of my recent favorites. Long time running, I honestly couldn't tell you. It's what mood am I in? What am I interested in? I like dark characters. Alucard from Castlevania Symphony of Night was another good one. I keep saying I like these eclectic types, but I quickly realized that the only two I could pull off the top of my head were too dark and like the dark, mysterious characters. Bleh. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Alucard. We'll stick Clive, totally. Cloud and Geralt. So it'll be a toss-up between those three. Question 10. Who is your favorite villain? Oh, this debate. So, especially... there's a Final Fantasy theme running in my video games, if you haven't noticed, so we're going to continue that. It is a toss-up between Sephiroth or Kefka. A lot of people didn't like, you either love or hate Sephiroth. I'm on the love side. I thought his character was very unique. I kind of liked the fact that his, for lack of a better term, origin story in Final Fantasy, I kind of felt that it was kind of realistic, that he felt betrayed and angry and raw, and then he kind of went to token villain, but there was definitely motivation in the beginning behind all his evil wreckety wreck stuff, versus Kefka, where the man had no motivation other than power and wanted to become a god. Which kind of lost a little bit for me, but as far as being conniving and winning, he actually did become a god, even though we kicked his ass later. Kefka definitely achieved his mission and brought the world to fucking ruin, something Sephiroth tried to do and didn't actually succeed. So, and of course the Kefka laugh. Can't go wrong with the Kefka laugh. But, yeah, I mean, both those characters, as far as villains goes, those two are tied for my favorite. Who is your most hated character of any game? He ruined the game. He was part of the reason why this game went down. Of course, yeah, surprise, surprise, it's going to be Final Fantasy again. Hope is the devil. And he's the devil because, sweet Jeebus, he brought nothing to the stories. You could have replaced him with anybody else and the same thing could have been accomplished. It's like, I'm a scientist. You weren't all that smart to begin with. Why are you suddenly a scientist? That could have been anybody. He was just kind of this pissed off, angry, mopey little kid, and then he got from, I'm a little less mopey and now I'm a little more angry, to now I have really no emotion. So fuck him. I mean, he had no depth. He was kind of annoying, and it's just everything about him. I was just kind of like, why are you here? I don't want you. So I was going to try to think of somebody else, but the more I'm thinking about Hope, the angrier I'm getting. So we're going to just stick with Hope. Question 12. What gaming systems do you own? I'm going to cheat a little bit here and say my PC is my first one because Steam is... Steam! A gaming system. It doesn't have to be technically hardware. No, Steam. Steam is a gaming system I own. I'm primarily a PC gamer, so the fact that I can order games without putting on pants, and they have so much games and so much things to play, it makes me super happy. Because, again, back in my day, the GameStop mattered. But as far as legit gaming systems, I would have to say, I think I only have two, actually. I'm trying to think if I have a third, but I don't. I have a Nintendo 3DS, which I play in bursts. A game will come out, I get super into it, and then I don't touch it for 6 months. But my Jimmy Jam is the PS4 as far as consoles goes. I like their exclusives. I'm hoping Persona 5 is really good. I was super into Until Dawn. If there's some games you like playing on PC, some you like playing on actual consoles. The games I like playing on consoles, the PlayStation Since Final Fantasy VII came out, because damn right I'm going to rope this back into Final Fantasy VII. On the PS1, I've been a Sony guy ever since. So, yeah. Question 13. What was your first game system? As I said before, the Nintendo. When the Nintendo was a thing and it came out, within the few years of it coming out, I had one. Super Mario Brothers, Final Fantasy were my Jimmy Jams back in the day. Nintendo had a bunch of good games, and then it started coming out with a bunch of garbage. But yeah, the Nintendo is what first started me on the path of loving video games. So I will always hold a special place in my heart for you, Nintendo. Question 14. What's your favorite gaming system and why? I won't cheat this time and say PC, even though I am a PC gamer. I'm a PlayStation boy. I don't play Xbox all that much. In fact, I can't remember the last time I've even picked up a Xbox controller. I like PlayStation exclusives. I like how the system runs. It has a lot of the games I grew up with that I remember fondly. Back to Final Fantasy VII's. They all came on PlayStation. That's how I played them. So part of it is nostalgia factor, and part of it is it's just my personal preference. Nothing more, nothing less. Question 15. Do you prefer to play guy characters or girl characters? I really don't care. It's the character that's important to me. The character, I need to relate to them in some degree, maybe not on a personal level, but at least understand them. I gotta feel like there's something beyond the pixels. That would make a great documentary name, Beyond the Pixels. But either way, it's the character, not their gender, that's more important to me. If I could make my own customizable character, of course I tend to go with the guys, because that's one easy thing I can relate to them with, being I'm a guy myself. But realistically, it's the character that's more important to me, not necessarily their gender. Wow, that sounded much more like PSA than I meant it. A public service announcement. Look at the character, not at the gender. Question 16. Do you follow walkthroughs or do you play through on your own? The answer to that is yes. Pretty much I try to do as much as I can on my own. But I'm a story-driven guy. I like progressing through the story. But I also kind of want to collect everything and get as much as the game as humanly possible. So I do one of two things. Either I do a blind run, don't look at the walkthrough at all, and just but I kind of tend to beeline through the story when I do that. And then I play a second time with the walkthrough so I can get all the nooks and crannies and see what I missed and all that stuff. Or I kind of mishmash. I continue on through the game for the most part. If I get stuck, then I jump on a walkthrough, and once I open up a walkthrough, it all goes downhill. That rabbit hole opens. I'm pretty much like, well, since the walkthrough's open, I might as look at other things. So that's kind of how my life works. So I try not to look at the walkthrough in my first run, and more often than not, I'm pretty successful. But when I do, I do. That's a perfectly vague answer for all of you. Question 17. Have you ever been to a gaming convention? Yes, I've been to quite a few, actually. Usually in my area in the Northwest, so we got PAX up here, and almost every type of nerd convention has some corner niche with some video games in it, and I tend to immediately want to zero in on that. In fact, many indie games that I've been really in love with, that's how I find them, is random booths. So I love gaming conventions, but the last gaming convention I went to had a lot of great stuff with video game panels. It wasn't like a video game convention. It was like, come on, nerds, come to this convention and we will have stuff for you. And I should plug it because it's not super well known outside of my area in Portland, Oregon. And if you're watching this from Portland, Oregon, I cannot stress enough, I had so much fun at this convention. It was probably one of my favorite experiences in years concerning conventions. So I'll also put a link down for NEWCON, which will be in December. So if you're in the Northwest or just want a new convention to kind of gravitate towards, you should totally go check this convention out. What game are you most excited for to come out in the future? So, Persona 5, I've never actually played any of the Persona games, other than maybe like I picked up the controller for an hour because a friend was playing it and I was curious, but that's about it. I was curious, I just wanted to check it out. XCOM 2 is right around the corner, so that's going to waste my life away into oblivion. And of course, right when you thought I wasn't going to mention it again, Square Enix, look, we got to talk about Final Fantasy 15. I think it has potential. It's focusing on what was Final Fantasy is dumb. We're never gonna get those old school Final Fantasies back. Maybe in remakes, cross your fingers for Final Fantasy 7, but I'm hoping that Final Fantasy 15 isn't the train wreck that I feel Final Fantasy 13. Realistically, Final Fantasy 13 2 and 3. I didn't think 13 was terrible. I just thought it was subpar. But either way, Square Enix, I have hope in you. I know earlier in this I just said, like, they've hurt me too much. I just can't trust them anymore. But I feel like Square Enix can change. I feel like Square Enix still loves me, and Square Enix can change. But I got a feeling that this is not going to go well. Here's hoping, though. Question 19. What's your best memory of a video game? I don't have one. I thought about it, but realistically, there's this feeling being an RPG nerd when you have clocked in 60, 80, 120 hours for your first run in a video game, and you totally fell in love with the characters, and the game ends. And it's a little heartbreaking because you know it's done, and it's done. But there's a part of you where there's this sense of completion, and the characters generally have an end point. More often than not, you feel good about the end point, and everything just kind of wraps up, and I literally get my heart aflutter. Like, I could feel my heart race at the end of a game, especially when the ending is done really well. No surprising, I'm going to say Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy II, or I guess it's 4. When back in my day on the Super NES, it was Final Fantasy II, just to save the confusion that most people have probably figured out. Anyways, I kind of felt the same way about Witcher. Most RPGs, I really invest in the characters. Pretty much all those endings are always give me great memories. Even something that was a little blanketed. I remember the first game where I didn't know what to do with myself when I finished it, which was on the Sega Genesis. It was called Shining Force 2. When that game was over, I just kind of paced around for probably a good hour because I didn't know what to do with myself. Question 20, what's your worst memory of a video game? Battletoads. Speed bikes, fuck that. To this day, I thought I could get past it. I even have a video where I end up rage quitting the game. Very first video on this channel, actually. I totally forgot about that. But yeah, to this day, even thinking about the Battletoads legit makes me angry. So we're just gonna move on. And finally, question 21. Which video game character do you see yourself as? Or if you had to be represented by a video game character, who would it be? So I cheated. Most characters have superpowers or has some unique talent, or, you know, they're special in some way, which I don't personally relate to that. I kind of see myself as a weird but normal guy. So I asked my friends, you know, what character do you think I'd be? I got answers all over the place. I don't know why I thought it was a great idea to ask my friends. Yeah, but one answer that I totally actually agree with is King Graham from the King's Quest series. Not from Final Fantasy. First question, I think that's been true about. But yeah, he loves puns. He's actually a pretty normal guy, especially the new concept of him. And he's not anything special. He's just a guy trying to do the right thing and wants to do good things and be good to people. And yeah, I can definitely relate to that. So those are the questions. Thank you again, Kev from FTX-Band, for tagging me. I have a lot of fun doing these, but now it's my turn to tag. So the 3 individuals I'm going to tag will be Z from Z Games, Spike from Spike's Gaming, and Metal Mountain 83. If you are interested in looking for their tag videos, I will put links to their channel in the description below. You should totally check out their channels. They are all a bunch of great guys and have a bunch of great channels. And of course, they will all do this tag. Please, guys, totally do this tag. This is really fun, and I would be really disappointed if you didn't. So, as always, thank you guys very much for watching. If you have not and liked my videos, you should totally share these with friends. Maybe click the little like button, or if you haven't subscribed, subscribe so you can keep following me on my adventures and we share them together, and it is wonderful and beautiful and glorious. But either way, I will see you guys next time.